we have this condition, our conditioning that's there, and it shows up however it shows up. It's the most important ingredients are the thought, the feeling, and that's it. The images are also of some importance. It depends on the individuals. For some individuals, the images are more important. For some, they're less important. But it's really the feeling and the thought are the most important. Because all of your experiences, all of the created stuff, it still depends. They're still constructed of the thoughts, the feelings, and the images. For some people, the other sensory components are also factors, but usually less so. So sometimes the sense of smell, taste, and hearing can be significant factors in the creation. But for most of us, it's primarily the thought and the feeling, and then to some degree the images. And so usually it's easiest just to work with those components. If the other ones are important, you can work with them in the same way that I'll describe. So if you notice, that's what you experience. You're experiencing thoughts, feelings, images, and then the other stuff to a lesser degree, usually. That's how you perceive that something exists, is through those faculties. So the actual substance of the thing is only that. So the conditions and the conditioning exist only, are comprised only of those things, the thought, the image, and the sensation or the feeling. So if we want to remove it or destroy it, then we want to cause it to decompose. So right now it's composed. So those components are attached to one another. They're associated, which gives a sense of substance to it, a sense that it's real, that it exists. Because if you think about it, if you didn't have any feeling, if you didn't have any sense of feeling whatsoever, and all you were experiencing were thoughts and images, then you would not sense that this was real. Right? Just imagine for a moment how weird that would be if you didn't have any feeling at all. So you're hearing what's being said, you're seeing it, and you can understand the thoughts, but you don't have any feeling. None of this would seem real to you, or at least it would seem much less real. It's only when the feeling is combined with the things. So it's when all of those individual components come together in a composition that we say this is real. So our experience, our so-called reality, our outer experience just consists of those things when they come together. And when they do that over and over and over and over and over, it seems very, very real to us. But that's all it ever consists of, is those things. So the destructive phase is just simply to take them apart, decompose them, so that we can actually start to perceive them as those separate things. So we can start to perceive it's just a thought, and it's just a feeling, and it's just images, but they don't actually go together. So in order to do this, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you the meta technique, as it were, and then I'll guide you through two techniques that you can use. So the meta technique is that you want to bring to conscious awareness the condition or conditioning. So the thing that you want to remove, the thing that you want to let go of, the thing that's interfering. And then you want to put your attention on it in such a way that you intensify it so that you're really fully aware of it consciously. And then you want to let go. And by letting go, I don't mean getting rid of, I don't mean trying to fight with it or deny it. I mean, you just let go of the attachment, the charge that you have with it. It's like you're just dropping it. And I'll explain in a moment why this is important and how it works. But that's it. You repeat that process with whatever the thing is, and it will decompose. So usually you have to repeat that numerous times with whatever the thing is, but when you repeat that numerous times, each time it's decomposing a bit more, and then eventually it reaches a certain threshold where it has fallen apart, and you'll no longer perceive it as real, and then that space has been freed, and you can create consciously and put whatever you want there. So that's the meta process, as it were. And then I'm going to break this down and give it to you in specifics so that you can make use of this in practical terms. Because I don't expect that what I just told you is going to actually make a lot of sense to you, but I just want to give you the background so that you can hopefully understand then how this works. So I'll take one more step back and just explain again at another level how it's working. So we form this conditioning within ourselves through experience. You can understand that however you want. You can understand that in terms of past lives. You can understand it in terms of early childhood experiences, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But the point is, at some point, we established for ourselves an experience that we said that's real. And so, what did that experience consist of? Well, hopefully you're following. It consisted of the thoughts, the images, and the feelings, plus the other senses to a lesser degree. So, but we put them together in that moment in what we now call a memory. And we said that's a real thing. It has substance to it now. And so that then has been repeating over and over and over and over and over and over. Now, why does it repeat? Well, it repeats because it's unresolved for us. We're trying to work it out. There's something there that we're trying to understand or figure out or work out or resolve. And so we keep recreating that in our lives using different ingredients, different characters, different scenarios, but the same basic thing is playing out over and over and over and over because we're wanting to work that out for ourselves. We want to learn whatever we need to learn there or resolve that. We want to let it go. We want to process it. So we keep repeating it. But what happens most of the time is that we're unconscious. And so we don't actually offer ourselves an opportunity to learn. And when I say unconscious, what I mean is that we actually get overtaken by the emotional charge. And so instead of being present so that we can learn something or see something new or release something, we just play out the same drama, which reinforces that it is problematic, that there's something there that's still unresolved, that we still need to learn, and thereby that same basic conditioning is stored again so that it can be reactivated later so that we can again try again to figure it out. This is why you just keep repeating the same stuff over and over and over and over. And this is why it's as cliche as it is. You can trace all the stuff back to mommy and daddy, or if it's not mommy and daddy, it's something else at a very formative level in this life or past lives. We learn these things, we repeat them over and over and over with the hope, although it's largely unconscious, but with the hope that we can resolve it. That's why we keep repeating it. But because we go unconscious, which is to say we're overtaken by the emotional charge, we just play out the same drama, which then reinforces that we haven't figured it out and that it's still a problem, still a threat. Thereby, we still have to figure it out. So we'll just store that same conditioning so that we can try again later. And so here, what I'm proposing is that we can actually use, when we understand the everything that I've just said, then we have all the knowledge that we need in order to be able to use the destructive phase of creation or of reality intelligently in order to help ourselves out. Because that's basically all we want to do is we want to say, okay, got it. Now I'm done, right? Like I had the experience, learned whatever needed to be learned, saw whatever needed to be seen, done. Let it go. That's all that's required. That's actually all that we need. We just need to be able to see that, okay, got it, done, let it go. But because we usually go unconscious because of the emotional charge, we're still perceiving at a very primitive level that it's a threat. Thereby, we have to keep playing it out. We have to keep remembering it. So, and think about this. In your life, you don't remember 99+% of the stuff that happens. Just think about that for a second. You don't remember, and I'm not even talking about like in your early childhood. I'm talking about yesterday. You don't remember most of what happened yesterday. And that's not because there's something wrong with you. It's just because that's basically how it should be. You only remember most stuff because it's what we would call traumatic, because your nervous system determined that it's problematic, it's a threat. And so you're holding on to it so that you can resolve it. But as I've described, what happens is you don't resolve it because the emotional charge takes you over. And so thereby you keep perceiving that it's still a threat. So in order to resolve it, you need to consciously put yourself into that situation. So you can do this in real time, but it's actually easier to do with stuff from the so-called past. And that's what I'm going to walk you through, how you can do this. Because you can get clear really fast by just going through the stuff from the past that still has an emotional charge. So I recommend that you make a list of all your memories that have an emotional charge, negative emotional charge primarily. And then you can just use this process that I'm going to describe to you with all of the memories on your list one at a time. And as you do that, you'll start to clear them. So you'll be removing the emotional charge in them, and then you will no longer be trying to resolve them because they will be resolved. And thereby that space will not be occupied by that conditioning, and thereby it will be free so that you can start to put in place what you want. Hopefully that's clear. So the basic process is this. So you have your list of the problematic memories. Then just take one at a time. So you put yourself into that memory, remember it, and try to work up as strong of an emotional charge as you can. And notice how you do it. So there's certain elements of that memory that you have to focus on in order to get that emotional charge. Try to get this strong of an emotional charge as you can. And then as soon as you've done that, then just drop it. So you can just open your eyes, look around the room, and just let go. Just say, I let go. I'm safe. So, well, there are two things going on here. So number one, most of the time we try to avoid those things that we perceive as threats. But when you consciously put yourself into something, then you're putting yourself in a position of power. Instead of being on the defensive, instead of being fearful, trying to avoid, you actually are choosing it. So it's a totally different thing when you choose it. So it's really, really powerful to choose to remember the thing consciously. That's the number one thing here, is that you're choosing it. So that automatically is changing things for you when you're choosing it. And you're not just choosing it sort of like, oh, maybe I'll kind of remember it a little bit. You're saying, no, I'm going to provoke it. I'm going to remember it, and I'm going to put myself right into it and with the maximum emotional charge. So you're automatically, by doing that, you're signaling to your nervous system that you're safe. Even if you feel uncomfortable, you're still saying, yeah, but I'm safe. I'm doing this, which you should know, by the way. It's just a memory, so you are safe. Hopefully that's clear, right? A memory cannot hurt you. You can hurt yourself by trying to avoid the memory, but the memory can't hurt you. So by choosing to remember it and put yourself into it with provoking the maximum charge that you can, you're automatically changing things. That's the first thing. Second thing is this, so think about this. If there was a crocodile in the room with you right now, would you be looking at the screen right now? And almost certainly the answer is no, you would not be looking at the screen. You'd be looking at the crocodile. Why? Because you perceive that the crocodile is a threat. So we tend to keep looking at the thing that we perceive as a threat. This is why we obsess over things that, we're like, this thing is bothering me. I can't stop thinking about it. Well, that's why you can't stop thinking about it. But here, what you're doing is you're choosing to drop it. It's so simple, but it's really, really effective, because when you drop it, you're telling the truth, which is it's not a threat. On some level, you already know that. Why? Because it's just a memory. You know it's not a threat, but you haven't actually given your nervous system that information clearly enough yet. That's why your nervous system is just trying over and over and over to deal with it. So you have to choose to give it that information. How? Just by dropping it, just for a second. You don't have to fight with it. You don't have to get rid of it. Just for a second, drop it, put your attention on something else. So I recommend choose to drop it. But even if you can't choose to drop it, at the very least, then you could just choose to put your attention on something else. So I suggest then you just ask yourself some kind of trivia question, like, what is the capital city of Venezuela? It doesn't matter if you know, what the answer to that is, you just ask yourself a question like it. What is the tallest mountain in Bolivia? Who cares? You know it, you don't know it. It doesn't matter. You're just asking yourself something just to redirect your attention. Why? Because there's no crocodile in the room. And you have to show your nervous system that that's true, that you can put your attention somewhere else, that you can drop it. So that's all you do. You choose the memory, you put your attention on it, you remember it, provoke it as strongly as you can, then hold that for a few seconds, and notice how you do it. Notice what you're doing to provoke that, what you're focusing on, and then drop it. Just look around the room. So if you're remembering it with your eyes closed, open your eyes, look around the room, and just drop it. Just choose, I'm just dropping it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to focus on it. And you can just focus on something else for a second. Then come back to it. Think about the memory again, provoke it as strongly as you can. You can't do it the same way twice because it changes each time. So each time you do this, something is getting released because of what I've just described to you. It has to happen. It's not a question of will it or will it not. It will. Each time you do it, something is being released. But each time you do it, you'll find that you have to do something different. You have to focus on something different or do something else to provoke a charge in it. So if the first time you focus on it on a scale from 1 to 10, you can feel the charge at an 8. Notice what you're focused on in order to do that. The second time you do it, you probably, in general, it's not always this way, but in general, most of the time, the second time you do it, you won't initially get the same charge on it. It will be, if it was an 8 the first time, it will be a 4 the second time. Like I say, not always, because sometimes we'll automatically go to other things. But then you should try and provoke it as strongly as you can and notice how you do that. I guarantee you have to focus on other things, other elements of that memory. Certain other key things you'll have to focus on them, whether it's what somebody said or an expression on somebody's face or a different point in the memory, something else you'll have to do in order to provoke a stronger charge, which is great because that means then this time when you do it, that stuff's being released. Those associations are being released. So it's being decomposed. All of the little bits and pieces that were all giving it a sense of reality are now being dissociated from one another. Keep repeating that process until you cannot provoke a charge on it. Then you're free.